Hey everybody, before we dive into this week's episode of the podcast, I want to tell you about our very first workshop coming up on May 30th. It's Slow Down Saturday. If you've ever gone to the end of the summer and wondered, where has the summer gone? This workshop is for you. Basically what we're going to do is for 3 hours, we're going to chart a course. We're going to look at where we are and where we want to go by the end of summer and say, all right, now how do we get there? And we're going to do it in community. And so this workshop is simple. It's only $40 if you register before May 16th. And so jump on it today to secure your spot. It's going to be a fantastic day. Being together, we're going to have baristas on site. And really, this is an opportunity for you to designate and invest for 3 hours to really transform the next 3 months. So make sure you go to my website, stevenglosser.com/slow-down-Saturday to learn all about the event and to register, but do it by May 16th to save some money. We'll see you there. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Everyday Adventure podcast. This week, we are putting some practical handles to this whole conversation about remembering. We're going to be talking about life mapping and how this is one of the most practical ways that you can really track God in your life, track the moments that have shaped you so that you can move forward with confidence and with clarity. And so we're excited to dive into this episode. But first, we haven't done celebration and anticipation in a while, so we should start there, Megan. Yeah. By the way, how are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. I like these episodes where we just get to chat and we get to kind of introduce some concepts and things that have been really impactful and helpful for us. So I really like these episodes. We've had some great guests on that we're going to down the road here. But what are you looking forward to right now? Like, what is Megan anticipating?
Okay, I feel like a lot actually, which is fun. I'm in a busy season. My family just asked when I'm gonna come to like the lake over the summer, and my next free weekend is July 4th. And so don't think about that, but there's a lot of good stuff. That's why I'm like, I'm looking forward to a lot. But a really big thing that's coming up is I'm going to California, and I'm going to the Bob Goff's Writer Retreat in 2 weeks.
Amazing.
That's insane. So
you will maybe have even come and gone by the time this episode airs.
Yeah.
That's
now
crazy. In our listening, we are just like anticipating with you.
Yeah.
What are you anticipating about it?
I'm excited to like invest in myself in something.
Yeah.
I don't do that very much, to like take a risk on myself. And so I think I'm excited to just step out in a little bit of boldness and uncomfortability with all of it. And also, like, I'm going into it, like, I don't have a book draft. I don't have a name for a book.
Yeah.
I have ideas, but that's really it. And so I kind of feel like this anticipation of a lot of clarity will come in that week alone, but then also in the weeks to follow. So it's kind of like a fun before the big moment, it feels like. Yeah. So I'm excited. And obviously just to get to see Bob, obviously I was going to say meet him, but I've met him.
We got to meet him on the
I've met him.
Yeah.
And then also Maria, his wife. I'm so excited just to get to meet them and the staff and everyone that they kind of, their immediate circles too. So
there's so many great people there. And, I know I'm a little biased, but I think you're going to love Kimberly as well. And so that's going to be so fun. I'm just excited to hear your experience because we're very different people. And so like I had a very hard time writing at the writing retreat because there were so many things going on. There's people everywhere and I wanted to be a part of every conversation, where you are just a lot more just like introverted and like you're okay in that. So I'm anxious to see like if you feel the FOMO that I felt when I was there, or if you're actually able to like, there's so many fun places that I could have written in.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Right. It's a writer's retreat, but do you write on the retreat?
Yeah, well,
Maybe
I didn't.
Not.
I didn't. I don't think I wrote more than 6 words other than the notes I took, but I'm so excited for you. It's going to be so fun.
I'm excited. What are you celebrating right now?
Yeah. I feel like we've just had so much kind of fun stuff happening, and I was able to speak at an event for NDSU Chi Alpha the other day, and just like their senior send event, which was fun. But the biggest thing we're celebrating right now is we got a basketball hoop.
Whoop whoop.
And Summit is like locked in. He every day after school like throws the backpack on the ground and just immediately grabs his basketball and starts shooting it. Rain or shine, it does not matter. It was 45 degrees yesterday, and he, for over an hour, just like nonstop, like didn't other than I was in my office working and he came running in saying like, I'm thirsty. And then he like grabbed a water bottle off my desk, chugged it, and went back outside, and I heard the door slam behind him.
Amazing.
But it's been so fun. My mother-in-law found it on Facebook Marketplace. My friend Will, shout out Will, has a truck. I'm in a life group where almost everybody owns trucks except me. And so I put out a little SOS, and I got a truck, and Will came and helped me. So we set it up, and it's just been, we knew it was like one of those things we wanted to do, but it is so fun. We're loving it.
Yeah. I came over last night to watch your kids when you guys went on a date night, and Summit, I walk in and he's in the middle of brushing his teeth, getting ready for bed. And he goes, you want to see my basketball hoop? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so it was really funny.
It's so fun. And it's like something that we can do together. And I know Taylor loves shooting around too. And so just that all of us can do it, especially as the kids get older. But Summit is just like, he's a beast. And he's just chucking it from 15 feet away. And I'm like, okay, we got a shooter.
He threw some shade at you yesterday.
I know, he always does.
He said, Dad can only make it from here. And then he took a step back and he said, but I can make it from here.
It might be time for that humbling moment again.
Yeah.
Every once in a while we have this hoop downstairs. And I don't like let him win for the sake of like his ego, other than just like, what's the fun of a 35-year-old man just like pummeling a 5 or 6-year-old? And so I just like to keep it close, and I'm on my knees, but every once in a while he talks a little bit too much, and then I just like go into, all right, it's going to be 11-0 really quick here, and we'll have to deal with that.
Insert your dominance.
Yep,
just so he knows.
Exactly.
It's funny.
So fun. But this week, I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it's like one of our favorite topics, I feel like, to talk about, and like just the idea of tracking, like what Kimberly talked about in last week's episode, like, right?
Lori.
Sorry,
You're good.
Lori.
Yeah. We've had great people on.
Yeah, it's been the best. So Lori talked about like tracking God in your life, which has been, I think, one of the most impactful things that I've ever done is to go back and like map out those moments that have been like pivotal for you. And so
For sure.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, I think this idea of remembering, it is very practical in a sense, but I feel like as I've thought about these episodes, as I've even edited them, I think the journaler is really like able to grab hold of this of, okay, I like to journal. I like to write about these things, and I like to sit in these. What I've realized in starting kind of like an intentional living reflection business is that people don't make time for it. They don't understand or don't realize how valuable these things can be. And so even today, like my encouragement to you listening is take a little time. Like these challenges, we're not doing them just for funsies. Like we want them to be something that can help grow you. So this life mapping thing is not going to be the challenge for the day because it's a big thing. But we've both done it. We've done it with groups of people. I've done it in coaching sessions, and it's been really impactful for everybody that I've done it with and that I've done it myself. And so I'm really excited to just kind of introduce what this kind of activity looks like. But really, I encourage you to take the time to actually do it. But let's talk first about kind of where does this come from? So where do we really grab hold of this, like theologically, Megan?
Okay, well, I'll give you the book of Joshua, but I don't know the chapter.
Hey,
so.
You don't need to give me the chapter, but what's the overall concept? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're going to read about and just talk about a little bit more is in the book of Joshua is when the Israelites are being led through the Jordan River to the promised land. And it's like this big, they've waited years for this moment to walk into the promised land. But they're called to actually stop and remember and wait and build 12 stones in remembrance for what happened.
Yeah, there's so much of the story of God's people and the Israelites where they forget. They forget God's faithfulness, within hours of being delivered from Egypt. They're longing to go back. They complain about not having food. God sends them food. They complain about how the food tastes bad. It's just like this constant forgetfulness. And I think we as humans, we can fall into this trap pretty easily, is that we just forget. We forget what God's done in our life. We forget where our keys are. We forget, we forget so much. But I think so this practice isn't just something that we or other people have said, oh, this is a really good thing. This is a God thing. This is something that he instructed his people to do. And so we see this as Joshua and the Israelites cross the Jordan River. In verse 6 of chapter 4, he says, or first, God says, take 12 stones from the very place where the priests are standing in the middle of the Jordan, carry them out and pile them up at a place where you will camp tonight. And then it goes on to say in verse 6, we will use these stones to build a memorial. In the future, your children will ask, what did these stones mean? Then you can tell them, they remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the Ark of the Lord's covenant went across. These stones will stand as a memorial among the people of Israel forever. This was like a big deal to God's people, is that they were to stack these 12 stones in the place that they crossed so that anytime anybody saw it, it would what?
Remind them.
It would remind them. It would cause them to remember what God had done. It would cause them to remember not only that moment of God's faithfulness, but like big picture God's faithfulness. It was to be even a spark of, yeah, he brought us through the Jordan River, but I've heard the story of where our ancestors were brought through the Red Sea. And I've heard the story of how they were brought out of Egypt and there was 12 or 10 plagues. And like, it wasn't just, okay, this one time, the 12 stones were symbolic because it represented all the tribes. Like, this is an us thing that we can forever look back at and remember. And there's a generational thing, and we'll come back to that in the future, the descendants wouldn't necessarily like remember that moment, but they would see the 12 stones, and it was like a teaching moment. It was a place where they could be like, what's up with those stones? You know, like they're not like all the rest of them, and they could ask the question. And so for your own life, before we kind of get into the how, like, give me the personal Megan why. Like, why has this been helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think what first comes to mind, I think it's been incredibly healing for me to go back and remember and one, like, heal those parts that were like super tough to walk through the first time. Like, same in the story that you read, like they had to wander for generations, you know. It wasn't fun waiting on the Lord, but his provision at the end with the rocks like reminds you that he is faithful, and he'll show up again, and he'll do it. And if he did it once, he can do it again. And so one, I think it's been really healing. I think it's also given me a lot of like very healthy perspective looking ahead at what's to come, that like I can have hope, and I can be excited for what's to come. I think also it's just reminded me kind of what you said. You were like the journalers kind of latch onto this maybe a little bit easier because you like writing things down. And I think what it's helped me to do is to continue to write even more things down to remember, whether that's like prayers that I'm praying or prayers that are being answered, or you know, different opportunities that you get or people that walk into your life. I think it's just made me very aware of the life that I'm like currently standing in. And so, it's just caused me to like write a lot more down. But it's been overall, I think healing is probably the best.
I think that's the same for me, is that it's been something that has actually allowed me to pause to make meaning of some of the moments in my life. And the things happened, the experiences happened, the losses happened, the wins happened, but actually taking a moment to look at them and evaluate them in the arc of my life, in the story of my life, and see where I'm at today and how those things have shaped me, or how those things have formed me, or how those things have deformed me. You know, there's things in our story when we go through this with people that it does cause regret, or it does cause that moment. And we've talked about this a number of times, but regret, in my opinion, isn't this big ugly thing when we allow it to shape our future, when we allow it to say like, yeah, that is a moment that I look back on with regret. I wish it would have gone differently. I can't change it though. And so moving forward, anytime I have an opportunity that's like that, I know what to do. And so I think that's what I really like about it, is that even when I did this for the first time, there were so many moments that I didn't recognize their significance, or I didn't recognize how they played in with everything else that had happened, decisions I made, or whatever the case may be. So for the practical side of this, before we get into the actual like mapping side of it and showing what this looks like, I think this could look like a variety of things. You could take 12 stones and pile them up on your nightstand just to give you a visual reminder. You can do something, but I think the heartbeat of it is something visual, something tangible that you can look at and it can call back things, or it can bring. And so for me, for the first 10 years of really like exploring this and discovering this, it was just my journals. Like my journals were my stones, but those are hard to look at and like on a routine basis, and take that time. It's very time consuming to read these things that have been written. Sometimes the visual of my journals, like on my bookshelf, can be helpful, and like just seeing them is a reminder. But I've realized that I wanted to make it more kind of noticeable and something that I could see. And I'm pretty sure you framed yours, but we're going to show mine.
I did frame mine.
Which is classic Megan. But this is kind of my life map. And if you're not watching, just kind of, we'll try to explain it. But basically what we did, we had a retreat and we had several ministry students, and we went over this kind of activity. And basically what we had them do is take a piece of, what's this called?
Like foam board?
Foam board.
Yeah.
And we got pins and just little things. We had little rocks that we could glue on. And it was just a way to visualize our story. And so we just had them in whatever artistic way they wanted. I kind of drew like a wavy line. It doesn't have significance of like highs and lows. Some people did that where it was just like, if it was a good thing, they put it up here. If it is a bad thing. A couple people were very artistic. I'm not going to name names, but somebody even took the magazines at the Airbnb we were staying at and cut them out and glued the pictures. It was very artistic. Like, hey,
it was
this
awesome.
isn't our magazine.
When they presented their board, we're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Where'd you get the pictures? They're like, from right there. So the magazines.
Just cut out pictures. But this is however you would like to do this. For me, I have these different pins and they represent different things. Red things are... what are the red things? Red things are just key moments. They are kind of transition points. Black things are deaths. That could be an actual loss of a loved one or a loss of a dream. There's things that are like sin issues. So white is something like made new. That was a turning point in a different way. And so all these different pins have different meanings. The big flags on mine are kind of key moments and transition points. I've got, some rocks. That's when Taylor and I got married. But all these things are different. So I'm just going to read a couple of them, and then we're going to kind of go through some of the moments that we talk about mapping out. So, hello world. That's my starting one. Then I put a rock where I decided to follow Jesus. It was when I was 5 years old. I was a young little whippersnapper, but I remember...
You're ahead of your time.
I know. I remember my parents like really sharing about this and making a sincere decision. And that doesn't mean everything after that was fine. As you can see, there's a lot more of the map. But, I have where a specific sin came into my life, where I was baptized, my cousin's death, who was a hero of mine. And that really was a significant moment in my life. I have different things like conversations with... We had a guy in a small group that gave his life to Jesus on the last week after saying he was an atheist the whole year, and he would just stop in our doorway just to say hi, and we'd pray for him and we'd love on him in the lunchroom. And I put that on there because that was like a moment of realizing, man, God can use anyone, he can touch anyone, he can save anyone, and just be persistent in loving people. There's moves in our life. I wrote about it, or I added an envelope that was placed under or in my mailbox when I was contemplating doing the Chi Alpha internship back in 2013. I put that on here as a pin because I realized how significant that was in giving me the courage to say yes to the call that I felt. But that it was an envelope full of cash, and it basically said, this is the first fruits of what God wants to bring. And to this day, I don't know who sent it, who gave it, but it was really a moment where I was like, all right, I think God's in this. And that was like I would say one of the biggest turning points of like trusting him, that has led to 13 years of really living that way. There's places, the church in New Jersey that was really influential in kind of giving us a new hope and a new dream of what church and what ministry can look like. The birth of our children, a retreat that we talked about, our If God dreams, and I shared about writing the book for the first time. And so I could go on and on and on about this, but these are some of the moments for me. I know you don't have yours with you today, but what are some like the key moments that you can recall from your experience?
Yeah, I mean,
or surprising moments, maybe. I know we all have key moments that are like, oh, that's obvious.
Right. Yeah, I mean, mine's similar. I have like the moment I gave my life to Jesus. There's like, it's funny when you map it out. There was like one clump in like fall of 2019 where just there's like 8 pins right there. And there's, the day I gave my life to Jesus. There's water baptism. There's when I met Carly, who's an influential person in my story there. And so like, it's fun also, I think, to see like how much happens in certain seasons as well. There's a lot with Delight there. Like I moved across the country by myself. And so that's a part of my story. Deciding to move home was also a pin on the map because I never thought I'd come back after doing that for a year. And so there's a lot of it. It's funny. We just did a similar retreat a couple weeks ago, and we walked a new group of people through this exercise. And they asked me, because I showed mine as an example, and I had only done it a year ago, so there wasn't that much, it's only been a year. But they were like, are you going to do it again? And I was like, I feel like I could do a whole nother map in just the last year alone, And so it's definitely one of those things that once you do the activity or do a little bit of reflection, it never really ends. There's just always, it just reminded me of like, okay, I can still pause and come back to this again and reflect on the last year and the last 24 too. But
yeah. Well, I think that's great, because even the year-end reflection stuff that I've been doing, that you've been doing, that we've introduced to other people, that it's a lot of writing, but this is an activity you could do of just retracing this year, going through the calendar and creating that visual. And again, I think that would be a cool representation. Like I have a picture of like a wall that's just like each year of somebody's life and just showing all of these moments. And I just think that's the heartbeat of it, is that. And so what are some of the things or the moments, so if somebody's practically wanting to do this, like where do they kind of start?
Yeah, well, I think for me the easiest place right away is, what are the highs and what are the low points of your life? And so what are like the big things that happened, the graduating college or starting a career or all of those things, but then also what were the really hard things? So what were, if you had people pass away, if you had, like, my parents got divorced, that's part of my story. So what were those like pivotal things that were harder to walk through? I think starting there.
Yeah. I think some good questions to ask are, what's a moment when you felt closest to God? Have you had a spiritual breakthrough moment? When have you deeply or felt deeply used by God? And what has that revealed about God and yourself? With the valleys, so there's mountains, again, in the journey adventure kind of framework of mountains, but there's also valleys. So what pain, loss, or trauma has marked your journey? When did you feel farthest from God? What still feels unfinished or unhealed? And how has God met you in those places? Psalm 34:18 says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So this part of it, though, really gives us an opportunity to recognize those high moments. I was saved. I, was baptized. I met a specific person. In my story, like, it was the births of our children. It was getting married. But then there's also the valleys. That's losing my cousin. That's unexpected job changes that wasn't part of, quote unquote, the plan. And those valleys also, in reflection, can teach you so much about God and so much about yourself. And we've talked about it before, but it also can show you how, like, of a blip that is in the big picture, even though it felt like it was all consuming in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's really what it did for me too. There's another part of this, which you touched on a little bit, but like the turning points of your story. So kind of, I feel like I imagine it like a fork in the road of, you thought you were going right, but you went left instead, or God led you somewhere else. And I think that's really what opened my eyes when I did the activity, was how many parts of my story there was like an opportunity to choose. And that I felt like there was just this realization that, like the Lord trusts me. I can hear his voice and I
Yeah.
can discern it, and he trusts me to make this decision with him. And like how differently my life has been than what I thought it was going to be 5 years
For
ago.
sure.
And so the turning points, I think, are also huge. Like what changed the trajectory of your story?
Yeah. So a couple good questions there is, what decision shifted my trajectory? When did I experience a sense of calling or purpose? And what made one of those moments so defining? And so, again, just those questions to recognize and uncover those turning points where, again, our coming to Jesus moment could be one of those, but also it could be a decision to end a relationship. Then you reflect on what came out of that and how did you see God's faithfulness, and how did God meet you in those low moments of those turning points. Another one that I encourage people to map out actually is the people who shaped you. Why do you think this one's so important?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this one I feel like is one of the most fun, I think. One, I think we're created for relationship. And so to see the people that have had a hand in your story is huge. It's made me so grateful for people in my life. I think I've been able to also like verbalize that more. For you, I mean, I know you touched on like your kids and your wife, but is there your wife, Taylor?
Yes.
It's like, I've never said that before. Taylor. Um, who are like significant people in your story?
I mean, I think what's fun is seeing on that map, there's a few of those people marked. It's when I met my friend Caleb, because in high school, I was very directionless and I graduated directionless. Let's not kid ourselves. But Caleb was the first, in my opinion, friend that was really living it out and doing his best to live it out. We were all doing our best to live it out. But I just was surrounded by maybe people that came to church or they went to youth group, but Caleb had Bible verses on the back of his door, and Caleb was actively trying to memorize scripture. Caleb was actively trying to live a life that was according to scripture. Like he was making decisions that were unpopular and living with those convictions. And I really wanted that. So Caleb is one of those people. I know Brad Lewis is one of those people that I look at my college experience and I see all these like experiences and moments, but there's a few people in that season, that Dave Liedall, Steve Pavic, but Brad really just said, come into my life and I'm just going to be an example. He didn't come with a curriculum of, I need to teach you all these things. He just loved me and told me who I was in God's eyes in a way that I hadn't believed in myself, and breathed a ton of life. Is there one or two people that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean Carly, I mentioned that she's all over my story. I think she was my first small group leader, but she also that year, my freshman year of college, was one of the hardest years. One, I was like learning all about Jesus for the first time, so it was awesome, but I also had a lot of family things happen that year, and Carly was just like there through it all. The amount of times I cried on her bed, and like she was the one that paid for fall retreat for me my freshman year because I wasn't going to go, and paid and just like believed that I needed to be there. And so when I called and said I was coming that day, she was like, perfect, got a spot for you, you're ready, in my car.
That's awesome.
Carly's been a huge part of my story. I think you guys are also on my map too, just the whole Glosser family, all of you, all encompassing. So
the Glossers.
Yeah, but yeah, and then like my brother Matt, I mean him coming to know Jesus was also my freshman year couple. And that one was pivotal for me, was like him choosing to follow Jesus was like, oh my gosh, like we can do this, we can pray for people and we can tell them about Jesus and then like their lives are forever changed. Like I couldn't grasp like the awesomeness of that. And
that's so cool.
I was just like, I was so enamored. And then just like, his life totally shifting 180. So he's a huge part of my story and still is. I mean, he's my brother, but yeah.
That's awesome. Some questions here are, who modeled following Jesus for you? But people can also be on the other end of it too. Who has hurt you deeply or challenged your faith? So challenge our faith is positive, but these people on our map could be a pain point that, and a personal pain point that we maybe don't have the meaning for. We don't have the the bow of like, oh, it all makes sense. You know, sometimes we will never have that. At least the actions may never make sense, but we can choose to see how God has brought us through those things and from those things, and continue to trust him for those. Kind of the last big one here that I want to encourage people to think about is patterns and promises. So what themes show up when you look at your life? What sins or struggles tend to recur? What scripture or word from God have sustained you? And so that could be something that you actually mark, or that could be something that you reflect on. And as you look through your map, and you can see whether it's a pattern of God's provision. You know, I know that was one for me. That's why I put like that envelope on there. And there was other financial things that I decided to map out. We had a friend that didn't know we were in a place that we weren't like struggling like to put food on the table, but we were really struggling with the idea of we just wanted, and maybe it was a little selfish, but we wanted to give our kids a great Christmas. Like we wanted to make Christmas fun. And I think every parent wrestles with that of like, how do we not be consumeristic and materialistic, but we also want to bless our kids and make it a fun experience. And we had a friend that came over, brought the credit card, said, go out and buy your kids Christmas gifts. They had no idea. And so like that's on there because of how significant that was for us to just know like God sees us, even the little things, even what we would quantify as selfish. Like we really saw God's provision of like, no, I love your kids and I want them to enjoy this too. So yeah, so fun. But really understanding those is a big deal. And so whether you make it physically, today we're going to give just a smaller challenge in just a little bit. But the reason we've done it this way is we feel like anybody can do this. You don't have to be the most artistic person. You don't have to be the most intentional person even. You just need to take a little time. You don't have to have the pins even. You could just draw and mark them and come up with your own kind of way of doing this. But we do want to give one tool that anybody can kind of walk with is we have some questions that really walk you through all of these. And so we're going to make that into a PDF that you can download. And so that will be in the show notes. And you can download that. And then that's just a great place to start on that. And then we do have, Megan and I both, we love to walk people through this. And so if that's ever something you would like, that's one of our Compass sessions for coaching through Journeyway is taking people through the life map. I did it with somebody a couple months ago and it was so fun. He didn't do the physical part in front of me, but we just talked through all the moments and he was writing them down and all of that. But before we kind of bring it to an end, I do want to read one other part of Joshua 4, because I think this kind of puts a bow on it, because obviously we can see the value for ourselves, that we remind ourselves. But I think that one of the coolest parts of this is that it is generational, and that someday my kids will walk into my office and see that, or they'll look at my row of journals in my on my bookshelf, or the box that's in the garage.
I was like, on the row of your bookshelf.
Yeah, I just have like 7 there. But in the garage I have a big bin and I don't know what to do with them yet. But they'll see those and they'll ask about them. They'll ask about what those mean. They'll ask about their specific pictures. There's a picture that people have probably noticed in the podcast of a random bald man. It's Cal Thompson, and Cal's made a significant impact in my life. And like they'll ask, who's that? And I can tell them. And so it's just anything that marks. And so in Joshua 4, starting in 21, it says, Then Joshua said to the Israelites, In the future, your children will ask, what do these stones mean? Then you can tell them, this is where the Israelites crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the river right before your eyes, and he kept it dry until you were all across, just as he did at the Red Sea, when he dried it up until we had all crossed over. He did this so that all the nations of the earth might know that the Lord's hand is powerful, and so you might fear the Lord your God forever. Like, this isn't just for us. This isn't just for our kids. This is for the nations to understand, and so that we can continue to point people back to God in our life. And I really do think that this helps me stay humble. It helps me stay grounded in the sense of like, there's accomplishments on my map, but it's so easy for me to recognize that those are simply the product of God's faithfulness and his provision and his making a way where there wasn't a way. So I really do hope that this is something that people take seriously and do and really grow from their life. What is your hope for somebody in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just mapping it out like that, like, really does something in your brain, whether it's like the visual, just getting to see your whole story kind of in front of you. And so I hope that you are able to just see like where God has been in your story, that like what you thought was lost or broken has been redeemed or can be redeemed, and that there's just so much hope in your story, and there's so much like expectation and anticipation for God to move. And so that's my hope for everyone, that you look at your story and you think, man, God's not done. Like this, like the best is yet to come. There's more ahead, and like what a story. And like I'm so excited to sit. I imagine sometimes with this activity, like sitting in heaven and comparing maps with like, I don't know, like Moses or something, you know, like crazy. Like, let's sit and like look at your highs and lows, and like what was encouraging for you, you know? And so I just think that there's so much like power just in seeing it all laid out on the table in front of you.
I know the first time we did this with a group of people, we had people share, and one, it went way longer than we expected.
Yeah.
But it was so awesome because people were telling their story and really having handles to tell their story. I think so many people that we talked to that did it that weekend kind of said, you know, I've shared my testimony, but this gave me like really a better understanding of how God has moved in my life, so that I can better tell my story and better share with those around me. And so as people were going through their maps, it was very emotional, it was very powerful, but it also gave us all a ton of faith and a ton of hope. And so I really do believe this can be a big game changer for so many people. And so let us know how we can help. We have the resources that we'll give you. Hopefully this episode gave you a place to start, but we'd love to come alongside you in that. But what's the challenge for today? We're not making them do the whole map. That feels a little bit much for just like a everyday adventure challenge.
Yeah. So we're going to dial it back and just have you pick 12 moments. So the challenge is the 12 stones challenge. So what are 12 things in your story, whether that's people, mountaintops, valleys, turning points, promises that God's spoken? Identify 12 of those and really lean in, reflecting, when did those happen? How did they impact you? What are you still carrying from those experiences?
Yeah, and so that could just be a bullet point list. You could draw a pile of 12 stones and write in on top of the stones. It could be picking 12 rocks out of your landscaping and taking a Sharpie and writing a 1 or 2 word kind of description of what that is and placing it on your desk. Just do something that symbolizes this, something that grabs hold of the fact that I'm going to stop, I'm going to reflect on what God has done, I'm going to create something that allows me to look at it and see God's faithfulness, but also point to it for others to know God's faithfulness. So we're pumped for you to step into this challenge. You can obviously head over to the broadcast channel where we'll have the instructions there, and we'll hopefully share some more over there. But also you can go to stephenglosser.com/everyday-adventure-challenge and not only get this one, but every week we send out a detailed instructions of how to follow along these challenges there. But we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We hope you're looking forward to the next one. We've got some great guests in store. We've got some great conversations in store as we kind of pivot the conversation from looking back to really taking inventory of where I am today. Like, you are here. This is where I'm at. Let's not lie and make stuff up, but let's really embrace where we're at so that we can move forward with clarity. So that's where we're headed on the podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a rating and review so other people can find the podcast. We can't wait to see you next time on the podcast.
See ya.